Hey T-Squad, it's Kirsty, and today we're pouring out one of the darkest and most complicated cases you've probably never heard of. We're heading into the swamps of Jennings, Louisiana, where between 2005 and 2009, 8 women all connected in some way vanished, only to be found dead in the water or dumped in ditches. They became known as the Jeff Davis 8. But here's the thing, in almost 20 years, no one has been convicted for these murders. And what's worse, there are whispers, and some would say shouts, of police corruption, destroyed evidence, and deliberate silencing of witnesses. So grab your tea, because this isn't just a murder story. This is a story about fear, power, and the dangerous mix of poverty, addiction, and secrets in a small town. Jennings sits in Jefferson Davis Parish, a rural pocket of Louisiana surrounded by bayous, canals, and swamp. It's the kind of place where you'd expect everybody to know your name. And in a way, they do, but that also means they know your business. By the early 2000s, Jennings was struggling. There was a rise in drug activity, sex work tied to addiction, and a growing mistrust between the community and law enforcement. For women living on the margins, survival meant walking a dangerous line, and for some, acting as police informants to keep themselves out of jail or in exchange for small protections. These 8 women were not strangers. Some were related, some were friends, and many were connected to the same social circles. They also shared similar life struggles. First, there was Loretta Lynn Chason Lewis, 28 years old. In May 2005, her body was found floating in a canal by a fisherman. She was known in town, and she had been an informant for local police. Just a month later, Ernestine Marie Daniels Patterson, 30, was discovered in a drainage ditch. Her throat had been slit, a brutal and undeniable sign of foul play. Then, in March 2007, Kristen Gary Lopez, just 21, was pulled from a canal. Her body was so decomposed that the cause of death couldn't be determined. She was related to another future victim, Brittany Gary, and was last seen alive with a man whose name would come up again and again, Frankie Richard. In May 2007, Whitney Dubois, 26, was found at a remote intersection. The location was far from her usual haunts, which made the discovery even stranger. In September 2008, Laconia Muggy Brown, 23, was found with her throat cut. The brutality mirrored Ernestine's death 3 years earlier. Only 2 months later, in November 2008, Crystal Shea Benoit Zeno, 24, was discovered in a roadside ditch. By August 2009, the body count had reached Brittany Gary, just 17 years old. She had been missing for weeks before her body was found. She was related to Kristen Lopez and had reportedly been seen with people linked to previous victims. The last known victim was Nicole Guillory, 26. Her body was spotted near Interstate 10 August 2009. Decomposition made the cause of death impossible to determine, but the circumstances matched the others. These women were tied together in more ways than friendship or family. Many were working as informants for the police. Some had witnessed the 2005 shooting of an unarmed man named Leonard Crochet by local officers, a case that left deep tension in Jennings. There were rumors that these women had information that could damage powerful people in town, and in a small place like Jennings, that kind of knowledge could be deadly. When the first bodies turned up, police responses were sluggish. Families reported that missing persons cases weren't taken seriously, sometimes for days. This delay meant precious time and evidence was lost. Crime scenes weren't properly secured. Locals sometimes approached the bodies before investigators even arrived, and because most of the bodies were found in water, decomposition destroyed potential forensic evidence. By December 2008, with the number of deaths climbing, a 14-agency task force was formed. But from the beginning, cracks in the investigation showed. Journalist Ethan Brown, author of Murder in the Bayou, uncovered damning details. One investigator allegedly purchased a pickup truck from a man connected to one of the victims, then cleaned and resold it, potentially destroying key evidence. That same investigator was later reassigned to evidence control, raising even more suspicion. Inmates told a story about evidence from Kristen Lopez's case being destroyed at the request of a suspect. The sergeant who tried to report it was fired. The sheriff's office even ordered DNA swabs from its own investigators in 2009, but the results were never released to the public. Frankie Richard was a known figure in Jennings, a pimp, a strip club owner, and a drug dealer. He admitted to knowing most of the victims and was often the last person seen with them. He was briefly arrested in connection with Kristen Lopez's death, along with his niece, Hannah Connor. But the charges were dropped due to lack of evidence. Frankie himself once suggested the women died because they saw something, heard something, knew something. Some believe a single killer was preying on vulnerable women, dumping them in water to erase evidence. Given the variety of circumstances and connections, others think there were multiple killers possibly linked through the drug trade and sex work scene. The most explosive theory is that at least some of these murders were orchestrated to silence witnesses potentially by people in law enforcement or connected to them. Several victims had been in the Jefferson Davis Parish Jail, where deputies were later indicted for trafficking female inmates to male prisoners in exchange for contraband. This was a world where power and exploitation went hand in hand. With a community living in fear and witnesses disappearing, it's not hard to see why this case remains unsolved. The Jeff Davis 8 case gained national attention through Ethan Brown's book and a Showtime docuseries, Murder in the Bayou. Investigation Discovery's Death in the Bayou also brought the story to a wider audience. But even with that exposure, there have been no arrests for the murders. Families are still waiting for justice, and the town of Jennings is still shadowed by suspicion. One mother of a victim put it in painfully clear words. "It's like they didn't care because of who she was. But she was my daughter. She mattered." So T-Squad, what do you think? Was this the work of one killer with a twisted pattern, or a tangled web of corruption, drugs, and silenced witnesses? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Let's keep these women's names alive and make sure they're not forgotten. Until next time, stay curious, stay safe, and keep your tea hot.